remember years ago I was watching something on CNN, and it was the first time I ever heard this word monolithic. And it was like, black people aren't a monolithic culture, and that is a problem. And I
what
think,
that mean? What's monolithic mean?
We don't all move and think together, think in the same way, right? We all have different experiences and different outlooks on life. Well, I'm gonna talk about the Jewish people. Them folks is monolithic. They move as a unit.
I feel like the Asian culture would be more monolithic. If anybody,
they move together too. But just think, like we had this whole controversy with Kyrie and Kanye a couple months back. Right. When they said something that they deemed was disrespectful, them people came together and they moved together.
Yeah. Kyrie didn't even say anything. All he did was post a video.
But that's my point, though. That's the power that they have. Meanwhile, you got a country singer who says nigga, and his next album goes 2-3 times platinum, right? But why? How come we just shut down? Because we don't have that
Jerry
power.
Jones
We don't
and
together, and that's the problem. So when we break it all back down to the battle of the sexes, and we're talking about how we're not monolithic, that is what's keeping us from actually gelling together.
Well,
so I think this way, you think that way, and instead of us finding common ground, we just focus on our differences, and now we.
All right. Well, this has been an awesome discussion.
Amazing.
Yes, we got a lot of different points of view, both male and female and generational. So we're going to be talking about the Black juxtaposition, or for those who are not sure what that is, the Black experience. And so more today about kind of just following up to what we were already talking about, some of the experiences as Black people that we're seeing in all realms of just being Black. So we're just going to dive right into it.
Get into it.
Samson, you had some thoughts?
Oh, no, I just had a question for the panel, and I guess to kick it off, I was just going to ask, what do you guys feel like is the greatest threat to our community today as we
lust?
That's exactly what my answer was going to be.
Lust?
Us.
Absolutely, especially for women. And you try to
hold on, 1,000 pounds, bro. You said lust, ill, or
lust?
Okay. I heard you wrong, but go ahead, expound on that.
We mess love. We mess our lust, and we call it love in every situation. We try to act as if we're so in love with each other, but we're only in love with the infatuation of someone. And so then we're never truly in love, and we can never truly grow in love. Again, we were supposed to be, at least as I was growing up, we were the faith culture that everyone knew because of the faith and because of how strong we were there. At some point, it grew to a lust. And so now we're losing in the world because people are truly in love with each other as a whole within their culture. And we still don't even know who we are. And we still try to mask it in every kind of way. And we can never grow, especially the older generation when it comes to lust. Because of the money attached to it or whatever it may be.
So when did the prevailing factor over love? Like at what point? Did it happen during, say, your lifetime, previous generation?
I feel like it's a choice within each person. But if a culture is so adamant about teaching a child who does love not to through lust, then that's an issue.
I agree.
I feel our threat is knowledge.
The lack of
knowledge. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In all aspects. I mean, our minds are somewhere else, rather it's the internet, videos, music videos. People's heads aren't in books. They say the best way to hide things, especially from the Black community, is in a book. Knowledge is, lack of knowledge.
I was going to say what I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Montgomery.
I was just going to say, in general, separatism as a culture, as a race, we are so divided on so many different platforms. We still have that dark skin, light skin thing going, and we can never truly come together and be unified as a people until we embrace our individuality and look at each other and get rid of the thoughts from when massa had us on the plantation and people had to pass the paper bag test to be living in the big house and working in the house. You know, we have to get past that. You know, we are a people of many different shades and we're all beautiful, and we let what white society has ingrained in us,
I think
still reign true.
I think I think that's facts, but we're also still stuck on this black and white. Like there's no specific person who's black, and probably no specific person who's actually white as hell. It's snow.
In theory.
In theory,
there you go. So why do you call yourself a color when you're not a color? So I feel like it starts from the beginning. Like stop calling. If we stop lying to ourselves, maybe we as a culture could probably grow in a way that we haven't.
That doesn't start with us.
I think that does us a disservice, right? If we, I mean, I understand what you mean. In theory, there is no black people, there are no white people, there are humans. But realistically, in the society that we live in, it would be doing us a disservice to all of a sudden say we should stop talking about race, because at the end of the day, there is a such thing as white supremacy, and they're proud of their ethnic background and their heritage. Right. I don't think there should not be a such thing as black supremacy. We don't have to have the same concepts as white supremacy has.
Well,
we should be proud.
Why? There you go. But that doesn't mean that we should be in competition with another because of their pride.
That's the whole. When we study etymology, that's what race is. When we talk about when we kids, hey, Alice, let's have a race. We finna compete. So when they constructed this idea of race and they separated people by the races, it was who can get ahead of who first. So for us, I think it's dangerous, bro, for us to sit here and try to discourage people to say, well, we should just live in a post-racial America and not acknowledge the fact that there are differences between people. I think that would do us.
I'm not saying don't acknowledge. I feel like it doesn't matter. Like, who are you to judge anything about me? Like, I don't care if you look like me. You could have been born right next to me. We could have been a second apart. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck. Like, Who are you to tell me what I think and what I know to not be true? Especially if it's following God. So again, I feel like when we think about they don't matter when we're thinking about God and whose we are, and that's what we're missing.
So we're missing God.
But everybody's scared to go back to that because we're scared to be judged and we're scared to live up to a standard because, again, in most cases, because of lust.
Yeah, you're correct, but we are still divided. That doesn't stop the problem at hand, which the world is right now is divided.
The world isn't divided when you include God. When you take out God, yeah, then everybody's divided.
Okay, so from an ideological standpoint, bro, do you believe that the world that we live in, who runs this world from a spiritual standpoint?
God.
You think God runs this world?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do I believe the God that you're speaking about is the premier force for good in this universe? I do. You understand? But I believe on this earth that we live in, I don't think that there is. I don't think. I'm trying to be cautious in how I choose my words because I know what I want to say, but I don't think God is too involved in this earth.
Well, so I think people's intentions. I think if your intention was different within like how you moved in your life, then you would be able to see how beautiful God was within your life. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, when you don't have that intention for yourself or for the people around you, then you can't necessarily see it. And I'm still growing with that every day, you know what I'm saying, to this day. But at the same time, if I choose to say, hey, God, I understand that you're first and everything that's going on and everything is here because of you, I'm able to see more of what he has planned.
Okay. So is it your point that if we just interjected or injected God more into our day-to-day lives, our culture, these problems that's been plaguing us, all of this will clear up
for black people?
If we became more in line with God, is that what we need to solve our issue?
Duh.
Okay. See, and I don't feel like that, right? I do believe in God, and I do believe that God should be the head of all of our lives. However,
Oh,
I also believe that black folks been waiting on Jesus Christ to come back for 400 years and he ain't showed up yet. For 2,000 years and he ain't showed up yet. I also believe that when we was brought across them waters and put into these ships, we were told that this we were given this Christian ideology, because most of us didn't come over here as Christians. Most of our people, when they were brought over here, they were of a different spirituality, different belief system. So when we come over here and
where can you tell me where they brought you from?
The Bible, bro. The only thing we were able to crack open and read without getting our heads beat off was the Bible. You understand? So because of that reason, I feel like there should be more insight from black people into what that book is. I don't think it should be dismissed. I'm not here trying to say that anybody who believes in it is wrong. I'm not on that. What I'm trying to say is we were given this book and we just ran with it. So much so that all these years later, we're still praying to Jesus. We're still begging
Jesus. Who prays to Jesus?
Mercy. Christians do, bro. You know what I'm saying?
They don't pray to Jesus. They pray to God through Jesus.
In the name of who? In the name of
Jesus.
In the name of Jesus, right?
Exactly.
But it's not. You're not praying to Jesus, so that's your misconception of someone else's faith.
But what did Jesus say, bro? What did Jesus say in that book that we talking about? Jesus said you can't get to the Father except through who? Through Him.
Through Him.
Right. So my interpretation, and I understand.
What did Moses say before that?
Oh, you want to go back to the Old Testament? Okay.
What did Moses say before that?
You guys, look, religion. Let's get back to the point at hand.
Back to the point about.
So, but I want to ask you, Alex, because this topic here of this panel is the Black experience, and you stated in the beginning there is no black or white. We're just the human race, right? So, what do you think? Like when we're talking about Black experience, do you think you're able to speak about Black experience? Because you said you don't look at yourself as a Black individual.
Man, I can speak about the Black experience. I can speak about the so-called white experience if you want me to.
How can you? Now, I'm going to ask this because I come from a biracial family. I can't speak totally on the white experience.
I can't either.
I'm interested.
So you can give us a little taste of it.
How can you speak on the white experience?
Just because
I can tell you who can speak on the white experience in my family. My youngest daughter. Why?
Is she white?
White? No, she's. How can she?
Because she chooses to be a little bit. She chooses to hold herself to a higher standard in her way.
No.
Herself.
No. What I mean by that is my daughter, Satara and Samson both know very well. She looks white, but because of what she appears on the outside, she has been able to have some white privilege without even wanting white privilege, because society looks at her, the first thing they see, a white girl, and she has experienced some things. So I can't do it. I'm light skinned. I ain't that light skinned. I don't have that advantage of speaking on the white experience. So someone as brown skinned as you, I'm really curious on how you can speak on the white experience.
I mean, I used to live with white people.
So did I. I still can't speak on the experience. I don't
get treated on the experience of being around them and being with them. And understanding my experience and theirs from our perspective.
But that's not the white experience. The white experience, let me just say what I'm thinking. The white experience is being brought into the fold of white people, being looked at as a white person, and getting the firsthand experience of how white people think and how they treat their own. As a Black person, we are not privileged to that. Just because you're around them, white people, and just like any other person, can put on a face. White people can treat you nice. They can, do all the things they do with any other race. You can't come into their fold and be treated like a white person. As the example I gave of my daughter, they look at her as white, so she is privileged to some things that if she looked even like me, light skin, light eyes, they still would see a Black woman. They're not going to treat me the same.
So when you were living with the white family, Alex, as you said you were living with, did you not feel like there was and I don't know how close you were with them and all that, but if you were pretty close, did you not feel like there was a difference between you?
Yeah.
You felt like it was and what was that difference?
Man, they got snacks in their pantry first and foremost.
Okay. But
I can go grab it whenever I want to.
I didn't know that was a white thing. I didn't know that was a white thing.
Okay, shit, but we stay in the country too, so there's a lot of differences. You know what I'm saying? From my perspective,
Right. From a
you know what
black
I'm saying?
man
Not everybody
perspective.
comes from my perspective. That's what I was speaking on earlier. Not everybody comes from a perspective that someone else may have. So there's this rich perspective, but sometimes that rich perspective, even within our culture, is sometimes hypnotized to the perspective of someone else who may not come from that type of perspective, but still may be able to move within that same culture, or walk in some of those doors and move in some of those rooms.
Like I can say I had a black experience, right? I have a black son. At the age of 6, I was living in this house in Minnesota. There was an Asian family across the street. My son was playing with his friend, which is biracial. They were outside playing with toy guns. The Asian guy called the police and said that he was fearful for his life. At this time, my son was 6 years old. Called the police, said that he feared for his life and his family. Police came to the house and everything. And once they talked to us, they were like, okay, these seem like cool people. All you had to do was walk over here and talk to them. Well, the Asian guy was scared because what?
No, black.
We were black. That's the black experience that we're speaking of, things that only pertain to the color of your skin. And it's crazy that unfortunately we're put in that category and people look at us in a certain type of way, but it happens.
I mean, I can say the same thing. So when I got to the same town that I'm talking about, I mean, there was people on my football team calling us niggers and writing it in schools. And so that became a big thing within the whole school. You know what I'm saying? Within the two small cities that was within 7 miles of each other, 5 miles of each other. And so, I mean, yeah, I had to deal with it. I had to deal with coaches from different schools calling me out my name in front of my face. And so it's just like, I've dealt with that too. But at the same time, I understand the difference. Like, I understand being treated well.
We're all still the same.
Being treated wrong. And so if the white experience is just, hey, you know what I'm saying, I get treated well in America as opposed to treated wrong in America, then I know how that feels. But I think that's also due to a choice. Like, again, I choose to hold myself to certain standards in life. And I don't cross certain boundaries within myself and also with when I'm around other people. Because I don't want to disrespect someone because I wouldn't want that to happen to me. And so again, I feel like that's a standard that you choose to have in life. And if you choose to continue with that standard, soon enough, God is going to provide the rest.
I think another part of that privilege, though, is deeper than just how you were treated. It's the presumption of innocence. It's the way that you are approached by so-called powers that be. I know for a fact that there would be, if the police was called on me for any specific, for whatever reason, versus a white neighbor for whatever reason, and neither one of these reasons were quote unquote jailable offenses. It could have just been a ticket, or somebody could have just, it could have just been one of those things where it was a misunderstanding. I do understand that when they arrive on the scene, regardless if I'm the victim or not, I'm going to be looked at as the person that they need to come speak with first. I'm the suspect until they can figure out otherwise.
That's your perspective. I mean, that's what you choose.
That's my perspective and tons of other young black men perspective around the country. You see what I'm saying? So if
I think like that's because you're living in fear. Like it's almost as if you want that to happen. Like, if a police officer approaches me, it's like, okay, yeah, I know my rights. If you're not going to allow me to move with my rights, then okay, then I'm like, okay, what's going on? But at the same time, it's like, I'm not fearful of the situation. I don't care about the situation. It's just I would rather be able to move with my rights as opposed to not.
I wouldn't say that I was fearful about anything. I think I'm aware of how things work, right? And at least in my part of the country, right? It's not going to be one of those things to where I'm hoping this happens. I go out my way to avoid the police. However, when I'm approached by one or I have to interact with one, I understand prime example. I was pulled over not too long ago, and license, insurance, registration, had it all. Snatched up out the car. Went through a whole bunch of BS behind it. Had a white counterpart that was pulled over, and I was in the passenger side. We were making a delivery. This individual did not get pulled out the car. This individual was driving without his license. Didn't get pulled out the car. The car didn't get searched. None of that. Hey man, I understand. Huh? Take this warning. Go on about your business. Go straight home. And that's what he got. Versus me having all my documentation and still getting pulled out the car. My car still getting searched. So that's not fear, or that's not me thinking that that's just my experience. That is the black experience across.
But that was also just that gentleman's. That was his choice. So not every officer is like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to say that every police officer moves like that, because they don't.
And wouldn't it be too dangerous to try to figure out if he does or does not? Like that's
absolutely. But again, that's why I don't know. I don't have those problems. Like there was a small part of my life to where I did, but again, I don't move with malicious intent at all within my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm not out. I feel like God doesn't do that. Like when you're not giving that type of energy out, God's not going to give you that type of energy back in your life. You know what I'm saying? And everybody,
so you truly believe that, and I'm just asking this for clarification. So I totally get what you're saying with the energy and God, but I also believe that God has a plan for everybody, and sometimes that plan is something unexpected. For example, because Satara and I both are from Minneapolis, I lived 4 blocks away from the George Floyd incident.
Right, where he died at.
Where he died. That man went in. True enough, he went in with a bogus bill, right? Whatever the denomination of that bill was. They called the police on him. So his energy, for whatever reason, with what he was attempting to do, was negative. I get that. But do you feel like, based on what you're saying, that man went in there because his energy was negative with what he was trying to do? His energy deserved death?
I mean, no, but again, that was someone else's perspective. So
but you
I
just
feel
said,
like overall,
I'm just calling you out on what you said. You said negative energy, like it attracts certain things. So if you have that negative energy,
oftentimes it does.
But that's life.
Like when you have that type of intention, there you go.
What about the people who have lost their lives that didn't do anything wrong? They didn't have negative
it's all
energy.
God at the end of the day.
So
promise death.
So you 28.
Promise death when we step foot on earth.
So you are a young man. You're a grown man with, at this point at your age, a lot of experiences. And we ain't got to talk about the police or none of that. My question to you is every time that you came across an obstacle, a hard time in your life, something that went awry, you were giving out bad energy? You think you felt like you deserved it?
Hell yeah.
That's interesting. I don't feel like every time I
gotta take full responsibility for my life. Like, so I mean, so it's like at certain points in time, it's like you have to understand, like, okay, I have to be not wrong, but wrong. I can't fully understand everything going on within life. And so someone else has to have a different perspective than I do. And so I have to always take that into account when I'm thinking or when I'm moving or especially when I'm upset or when I feel out of my body or out of character.
But I guess my question is, what does my perspective, let's say you said someone, what does my perspective have to do with how you are going to make the decisions in your life? Right? My perspective is different than yours. You hear my perspective.
So it goes back to, I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't mean to cut you off. I feel that goes into that black perspective that we were talking about.
Okay.
And so the kids that look like us and the people who look like us sometimes take their perspective or take your perspective and use it as their own, or may look at you and look at their life and say, okay, hey, because they're moving like this and they look like this, or they're who I admire, or who who they have something that I want, or whatever it may be, they may try to emulate you in some type of way. So I feel like if we're all talking about moving in the same direction, well, we have to start from the root of the problem and not the fruit of the problem.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna say, like, when somebody is copying what somebody else is doing, they can't sit there and say that that's their experience. A person can speak on their experience, and that shouldn't influence the next person.
It
Because
shouldn't.
that person can't sit up here and be like, that's my experience, because they didn't experience it. And the only reason why we're calling it Black experience is because the numbers show that it happens to people of our skin complexion. So, like, there's just certain things that happen to other races that
Don't happen to us.
don't happen. Yeah. It just, that's why when Montgomery was saying in the beginning, you can't speak on the white experience because their experience is just different. But people still only can speak on their own experience. That shouldn't have an influence on anybody else doing what they're doing in life just because I'm speaking out what my opinion is. Now, it should probably open your eye and make you look around the corner and see things a little differently. But if it doesn't happen to you, then it shouldn't have any bearance on your life. So I don't see how a person copying what a person is doing just because they're expressing their experience has any influence on their life.
I mean, I can see that. I understand that. I think when it comes to the Black experience, I don't know if I think overall, I mean, apparently you got Alex here. Alex says that he has a different experience. And
right.
He is just like, my experience that I express, I could speak to a lot of other Black men, young and old, that can relate and say they've had similar experiences. Overall, I think the Black experience in America isn't one that we should be okay with. I don't think it's like when we talk about God and how we should implement God in our lives, I don't think we should have it to where it's all on God. It's nothing that has anything to do with us. I feel like at the end of the day, we put out good energy and sometimes bad things come back. We put out bad energy and we shouldn't be surprised when bad things come back, or perhaps it may even go our way, right? Because that's just the way life is. And when we speak on these experiences, I think a lot of times we're overlooking the fact that this was the Black experience was planned. Like this was planned. Like this was written for us. Like, the fact that we don't know who we are, the fact that we don't know anything about our original cultures, the fact that our culture that we live here today in America was given to us at some point in time in the past. All of these things feed into the Black experience. It speaks to why we are how we are. Like, we can't say that the Black experience hasn't been horrible, because if it wasn't horrible, our community wouldn't be in the shambles that it's in. We're not like we are by happenstance. This was all by design. So when we talk about the white cop Black man situation, or we talk about any other type of white privilege that Black people aren't necessarily privy to,
or any type of prejudice against any type of person of color, it was
designed though for us. So when we talk about prejudiceness, though, when we talk about prejudice,
the same thing.
Right. Okay. So, but why then did I not hear you acknowledge that that is something that is legit and partial to the Black experience? Talking about that prejudiceness, because you spoke highly of the white family, and they may have deserved to be speaking highly of. However, there's another white family that don't deserve that type of.
Nah, and there was plenty of other families who deserved that type of, appreciation within that time. But at the same time, that was a time when I got kicked out of the house. So I needed somewhere to go, and they welcomed me in with open arms. And so when I say that type of experience, it's like, okay, well, it's the same experience to me, because I know that my friend down the street would do the same thing, because I spent multiple Christmases and holidays with them. And so, again, sometimes the Black experience or my experience may be different from your experience or their experience. That's why I don't think of it as a Black experience or a white experience. It's all the same experience or a different experience depending on the person and the situation.
Okay.
So
But I feel like for men in themselves and men who look like me and this gentleman, what we were talking about as far as that prejudice, it's very rampant within the communities, not only just for the cops. Shit, the women sometimes seem like cops, and the this culture and that culture, and everybody's a cop against us.
So I want to bring us into a more positive kind of light with the Black experience. So I know that moving here to Texas, I have encountered so many Black businesses. There's Black businesses everywhere, and they're thriving, and I'm seeing so much positivity in that light. What experiences, if any, have you guys come across? I know, Samson, you're in Illinois, and the three of us are in Texas, but what have you seen as far as our culture moving in a positive direction, financially, generationally? What have you seen?
Me personally, actually, you know, we both been here in Texas almost the same time. But I noticed that here, Black people definitely do a lot of networking, and they like to, you know, give good information for you to make the next step on whatever your adventures are, you know, and endeavors are. You know, they definitely are supportive here. It's different than Minnesota completely, but yeah. I see a lot of Black people, businesses, you know, networking and coming together to build each other.
Yeah, that's interesting. There are a lot of Black businesses here in Chicago, and I'm not a Black business owner yet, as of yet, but I do speak with a lot of them, and I hear that it's a lot of, you know, you got your people coming in asking for discounts, and it's a lot of back and forth in terms of how our people doesn't seem to want to support those Black businesses, and I think that's sad. But nonetheless, I do believe that, you know, those Black business owners in that community, they definitely help each other out, and they definitely try to build with each other, because I think the overall goal is to have a community that, you know, we can call our own in terms of you know, being business owners and just banks, and I mean everything across the board, education, so on and so forth. So I see that going on here in Chicago, but I also see a lot of underhanded hating as well. So it's good to know that doesn't really go on like that in Texas amongst.
Well, I want to speak on that a little bit. So when you talk about, I want to support as many Black businesses as I can. And I know Satara and I have gone to many Black businesses, whether it be a restaurant, you know, what have you, be supportive. But here's the thing, and this is what I would like us to get away from the stigma of us not supporting our own businesses. And the stigma is they're not going to be professional. They're going to be shady. Something's going to happen that I'm not going to experience in the white establishment. Had an experience, and Satara's been there. I'm not going to give the name of the place, but she's going to know what I'm talking about. It's a lounge. It's kind of a bar. It's not even a bar. It's a lounge. And it's owned by a Black man. Walk in, it's very nice. It's very put together, looks very organized. So, you know, of course, yay, I'm glad the Black experience, you know, because that stigma, I feel, of, you know, people doing shit half-ass. Actually, I got two examples. So this establishment, very nice. It's always busy, always packed. These folks wasn't paying their folks. So on the outside, everything's looking good. When the first couple times I was there, their menu, they didn't have food, mainly the desserts, but it was on their menu. So the first time, okay, I'm gonna excuse it. The next time, what's up? Take it off the menu. So it's these things like that Black people are like, this is why I don't go to Black establishments. This is why I don't support Black businesses, because it's never organized. It's never put together. There's some shady shit going on.
Yeah, cutting corners.
Corners. Mm-hmm. The next establishment that we went to, This was just recently, remember? The Mexican restaurant, but it was taken over by new ownership. You remember that one?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was now it was advertised happy hour and it was supposed to be packed, right? But it was taken over by new ownership. Black people. We didn't know we couldn't get food from the bar. You had to actually sit like the bar is here. The bar is here. The open area is right here. You actually had to just turn around and sit down to order food because they were two separate things. So the business part, the black people were buying it and it wasn't all complete. So it's bad business. And as we're there for a little while, because we stayed, there's a black lady that came in. Now she done drove, I don't know how far, because everything in Texas is far, but she must have came a long way because she's looking at how it's advertised. There was no music and they were actually closing early because they didn't have anybody in there. Yeah. That's what I like black businesses to get away from. Where is your quality? Where is your customer service? Where is your work ethic? At the same time, for those black businesses that are doing their thing, they have the prices that make sense because the quality of work. I have seen so many online black businesses where people are actually making videos like, let me show you why my prices are the way they are. Because I do this, this, and this. And let me tell you, we shouldn't have to go through that to prove to black people that we're worthy of our own black dollar. But people are having to do that. And at the same time, we got, there's a, I wish I could remember what the name of the shoe brand is. And I've been seeing it out for a while. It's a black owned company. Their shoes are high quality leather. They make gym shoes, high quality leather. They're nice. And they'll have emblems on there like the Pharaoh's eye or something to do with black culture. But black people ain't checking for that. They still want the Nikes and they still want the Adidas and they still want. Why aren't we investing more in our black businesses? But I get it. It's that whole.
It's the quality of work, and don't get me wrong. Like, again, cutting the corners, they want to charge XYZ amount of money, but yet the quality isn't there. So it's all about the quality.
I think it's about the standard of the person.
Though so you're right. I don't mind spending money for quality. And I think sometimes there seems like to be a lack of quality. And I don't know if it's because, we know that the people that own it look like us. Like I've never seen anyone go into your local white-owned grocery store and negotiate prices, but I've definitely seen it in the black-owned store.
We know in Chicago, up to Reds, I recall so many times walking up south side of Chicago, walking up to the corner store, and the corner stores in Chicago, at least the south side, they don't charge tax a lot of times. And every now and then, the store owner be like, okay, if it was a $1 and they're like, oh, it's $1.05. And I have seen dudes be like, what? Oh, you gonna charge me tax now, man? Take this $1 and just walk out.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. Like, doggone well, you're not gonna do that at Walmart. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
true.
Yeah, security.
It's disheartening. But at the same time, I think it goes back to the black experience, right? When we talk about how, we were taught to put on a pedestal and bolster whatever the other culture creates, but anything that we do, anything that, we have contributed to society,
we just don't never get a chance to heal, bro.
We don't do what now?
We don't get a chance to heal as individuals because there's always something else that we have to go through. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we never really get a chance to heal from the past trauma. And even if you speak about it or try to heal from it, it's like, nope, that's not what we do here. And
that's only for us, though. That's only for us.
Exactly.
When one of us brings up slavery, it's dude. You don't even know a slave. You ain't never been a slave. When one of us brings up redlining or Jim Crow, it's dude. It's 2022, 2023, man. Ain't no Jim Crow going on this day. But you bring up the Holocaust. You know, you bring up any great atrocity in history that has affected people that looked opposite of us, then it's fair game. But when you talk about us and our trauma and what we've been through, America wants you to shut up. America, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about something that happened 200-300 years ago? It's not in existence. As if those practices were not passed down from generation to generation to even affect the kids that came from me. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, it's still prevalent. And you want to know why it's still prevalent? Because the average, I want to say that carefully, because black men are out here killing each other left and right. And why can we kill each other so easily? Because we were taught that we want shit to begin with. And this is something that still rests with us subconsciously. Consciously, we don't think that. Consciously, we think we're confident and full of self-esteem. But subconsciously, when, you know, for the sake of this conversation, when I look at you, when you look at me, as two black men, it's like, oh, he ain't shit, and he ain't shit either. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's a part of the black, and that just trickles over into how we treat each other when we do business, right? So now, I don't want to pay you what you asking for, because nigga, what I look like, you know what I mean? And it's like, that to me is where we need to start at when we want to determine, because we ain't gonna be able to grow like that if I'm trying to shortchange you every time you're trying to sell something.
Right, and we talk about his family, but it's not family, like, you know what I'm saying? Because we're always discrediting each other when we get the opportunity to do so. It's almost as if like we're trying to grow together, but we're in competition with each other. So it's just like now we feel like, damn, you owe me something because I feel like I've gotten to this stature in my life, or you feel like you gotten to this stature in your life. And now it's like, man, how can we ever grow together if we're always so apart?
In competition. Absolutely. And we were set to be like that. This is what I was speaking on earlier when I said all of this is by design. You know, our natural inclinations, I'm sure, is to help our brother and not destroy our brother. But generations later,
because we are, as black people, we are one of the most helpful people. We will help anybody, and we are some of the most forgiving people, but not to ourselves. And I don't understand that. I watched this. It was a news interview, and this black child had been murdered, kidnapped, but they found murder, and it was a white man that did it. And this black family was, when they're looking, when they're talking about looking for, they're like so forgiving, you know, we don't blame, you know, this race, we don't do this, we're so forgiving. And but we don't do it for ourselves. It's like
that genuinely pisses me off, but I think that's from conditioning, right? For us to be that forgiving. Like I remember when this whole Dylan Roof incident happened in one of the Carolinas, when they killed all those black people in that church, when he killed all those black people in the church, they were talking about forgiveness and how we forgive this boy for coming in here shooting our other parishioners. And that pissed, like, I think that was probably the first time where I got mad at that thought. Like, these people got the audacity to get up here on national TV and talk about they forgive this boy. We're not forgiven for anything. One, like you said, we don't forgive ourselves. Nor are we forgiven from other races when we do stuff. So I think that forgiving spirit that's so prevalent in our community for others, that comes from conditioning. I think most of the stuff that we do in our community comes from conditioning, to be honest with you.
It's all systemic conditioning, but I feel like shit. Again, we got to be rooted in some type of love, like real love. It can't be lust. You know, we get our focus, we can really love.
Yeah, I ain't gonna cut you off. I just wanted to know, like, with love being at such a deficit in our community, where do we find this love, right? You know, we can talk about individuals. I can talk about how you know, my son, my daughter would never be at a deficit for love because they have family and so on and so forth. But I think, I know for a fact, I don't know about the rest of the panel, but I know people who didn't grow up like that. I know people who are raised off survival versus raised off love. So they have a totally different outlook in this world. So when you say we need to be rooted in love, how do we go back and get those people that are not familiar with that concept?